Welcome to I Caught It on Audio. This is Water Cooler Chat episode 24, Oppenheimer.
Welcome to I Caught It on Audio. We're going to gather around the water cooler today and have a chat about the movie Oppenheimer. This is a movie that came out this summer, directed by, screenwritten by, and produced by Christopher Nolan. It is about the physicist whose name is Oppenheimer. Can't think. It's Robert Oppenheimer, right?
J. Robert
Oppenheimer. That's right. And it's kind of goes through the story of his involvement in the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb. It kind of has three storylines going. It's got that one. It's got the story of Strauss, who was in his Senate hearings.
Yes, he's it's a hearing to approve him for some sort of post. I can't remember what
Secretary
the post
of
is.
Commerce.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. And then there's also the love story and his relationships with women, I guess, in general. I just watched this 2 nights ago. When was the last time you guys each watched it?
I also watched it like 2 or 3 nights ago.
For the first time?
Yeah, first time.
It was a few weeks ago, maybe a month.
And Matt, I know you've seen it a couple times, right?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater twice, and it would have been like the week after it came out and the week after that. So
Yeah.
A while ago now.
Okay. So what, Matt, since you're the fuzziest on it, why don't you tell us what you thought about it?
Well, I really liked it. I loved the non-linear storytelling. I really like when we can pop back and forth on a timeline and get new information every time. I loved Oppenheimer and the supporting cast around him and how prevalent it was. The politics of it all was just as important as building the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the respect the scientists had for other scientists from other countries and how they're like, well, you guys think that we're going to just do this. Everybody else is just as close as we are.
Right.
Yeah, I just love the movie in general, and it didn't feel like the 3 or 3 hour or however long movie it was. You just kind of
just over a minute over 3 hours.
Yeah, you just moved through it pretty quickly and flawlessly.
All right, Dan, what did you think of the movie?
Well, I agree. It didn't feel slow, or it didn't feel long. I mean, it wasn't exactly like breakneck pace, but it didn't feel like it was too long. Although I will say, I think the weakest part was probably the third act. I just didn't really. I mean, it was kind of like a fun thing at the end there with the Senate hearing when they sort of focused on that and the sort of the culmination of his getting his approval for his security badge or whatever it was, the interview process, which also frames the story. I thought those were fine, but didn't seem to be maybe important enough to be the sort of climax of the movie, because I feel like the climax of the movie is when the bomb goes off.
Yeah, it was interesting that they had a whole hour after that.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it was amazing up to that point. And after that, it was fine, but it felt a little more like an Aaron Sorkin movie almost. Sort of a bunch of conversations and cleverness, you know.
This is how politics works type thing.
Yeah, kind of a little bit like West Wing or maybe something like that. I don't know. And it wasn't bad. It was fun, but it didn't really have much heft to it. I thought the performances were all pretty great. There were some interesting choices with the visuals, sort of try to express visually what goes on in the brain of someone who's thinking. I thought that was pretty cool. Really, I have no complaints. I don't know that I loved the movie. I don't know if that was the point of the movie or not, but it was really admirable. And the only weakness I would say is that it tapered. That last hour just wasn't quite on the level. I mean, it's interesting to see him grapple with his doubts and a sort of fear of what he had unleashed upon the world and,
right.
His part in that, because I found the first couple hours just really, really great. But yeah, that's what I thought. Zach, you want to give your thoughts next?
Yeah. So I really loved the acting on it. I think pretty much everybody in there did a great job, and it was fun seeing, people like Josh Hartnett and and Matt Damon, to a degree, kind of come back out of the woodwork. Both of those guys haven't, Matt Damon gets a lot of work, but he hasn't really been in the limelight too much lately. But I liked, seeing them come out. I liked seeing Robert Downey Jr. do something different than Iron Man.
Not Iron Man.
Yes, that was really cool. I've always loved Cillian Murphy. I'm glad that he finally got some real screen time to really prove himself and show off who he is as an actor. And he absolutely took over the role. Like I don't know how J. Robert Oppenheimer actually is in real life, but I felt like I was watching him and not Cillian Murphy try to be him. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. There's no question that Christopher Nolan is an amazing director. He does everything so meticulously. It's like really, really important how he frames everything, how he constructs the scenes and stuff. But I kind of felt on this one, you guys are absolutely right. Like the 3 hours didn't feel long, but I didn't feel like the story that's here needed to be 3 hours to be told. And I kind of wished it would have sort of like cleaned up a little bit in the editing. That being said, I can't really pick out specific pieces that I thought needed to be removed. But I just I got the feeling as I was going through this thing that he needs to work with people that give him resistance on things. I'm getting a sense. I hate to make this comparison of like George Lucas with the prequels because there's really not a good comparison to make with that. But
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like he's gotten to the status as a director that he can kind of do whatever he wants, and that's a problem because at some point he's going to keep going and going and going when he shouldn't, and there isn't going to be somebody that's there to say no, or there is, and he's just going to say, I'm Christopher Nolan, bitch. You have to do exactly what I say. Don't, I'm going to do it regardless.
There's going to come a point where he's just going to make Avatar movies over and over again.
Yeah. While I don't necessarily think that's this movie, I did get the sense that it's going in that direction. And also I'm curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are on like, what's the point of this? What's the purpose? Because we already know that nuclear weapons are not good for society, not good for, anyone, certainly not good for Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the people that were killed there.
Didn't work out for those guys.
So I'm curious, like what's the real purpose for doing a movie like this, to explore like the fact that it's troubling that when you go down this path of potential mass destruction of the entire planet, of all the people on it, that there's moral ambiguity. I just didn't really get the sense that it was giving anything new beyond like the performances and the high art of the craft of filmmaking. That's kind of where I land on this one. I'm sort of in the same boat as Dan, where I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed the going through it. I just didn't love it like I've loved other Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you and Dan. I think it was definitely very well made, and I don't doubt it gets nominated for several Oscars. But for me, I didn't care about a lot of the characters. Like obviously the Oppenheimer character I cared about, and I thought Emily Blunt was fantastic as Kitty Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
but I didn't care about the general. I didn't care about Strauss. I didn't care about the mistress. Like when she killed herself, I was like, oh well. I mean, no more Florence Pugh in the movies, or Pugh, however you say. I don't know how you say that.
Pugh, I think.
Pugh. She's not going to be in the movie anymore, probably. So,
well, you were wrong.
Well. What's that?
You were wrong.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the characters, Like, I cared more about the Einstein character, who we saw for like 3 seconds, more as much as I did most of the characters. I didn't think very many of them had a very interesting story arc. Obviously, it was a movie about Oppenheimer, so he got the whole story arc, and that was very well done. And like I said, Emily Blunt did a great job with what she had with the Kitty Oppenheimer. But Matt Damon was just some army guy, and Robert Downey Jr. was just some politician. I mean, I didn't see any difference between the Robert Downey Jr. character and the House of Cards, the main character in House of Cards. And it was just pretty static and uninteresting. I thought the visuals were too much. It was very, very ambitious, but they sure did cinematography the crap out of this thing with the black and white scenes and the oversaturated scenes, and then the washed out scenes. And I had a lot of trouble with that, with all of that going back and forth and back and forth. And I realized it was a storytelling device so that you kind of knew where you were in the story in regards to the other things, because we were skipping around in time a lot. But it just got to be too much at a certain point. And there was a score going 99% of the time. Like, there was always music going. The only time there wasn't music going, to my recollection, was when the bomb went off in the test. Like, and that was for dramatic. Like, that was the. It felt like the red coat that the little girl was wearing in Schindler's List. It was like, we're being bombarded with music the whole time, and then there's this silence when the bomb goes off for dramatic effect. And it was just so much. Like, Dan, you've complained in the past about how the music is telling you how to feel, and I don't know if you felt that way in this one, but it was. I felt overwhelmed by it. Just the constant barrage of music.
I actually liked the music, because I didn't think it was, for the most part, it wasn't super over the top. I guess what I mean is it was striking because it was different sounding, but it wasn't. It was vague enough in what it was trying to express, and maybe your mileage varies on whether it's worth it to have the score going, to have that moment where the score is not there and really, make that jump out. I thought that worked pretty well. I guess it didn't really bother me that much. I didn't really think about the score other than as this is an interesting sounding score. And I think it helped feel like the movie kept moving forward when it's really a fairly dry examination of ideas and political, maneuverings. Broadly speaking, there's only so much visual interest in scientists talking about science until the bomb actually goes off.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand where you're coming from. I didn't mind the shifting of the visual palettes between the periods, because it served an obvious purpose of letting us know immediately where we were and what time it was, or what year it was. So I understand where you're coming from.
The weird thing about that, though, it wasn't even consistent throughout the whole movie. Like, when they're sitting around that table with that big centerpiece, that gets black and white sometimes, and it gets full color other times. And I thought that was really weird, because what are we supposed to, are we moving into now this is the current, or I don't know. It was bizarre, and it didn't make sense at times.
It's been too long for me to remember if there was something that tied that together sensibly. You could be right; that could have been nonsensical. And it didn't strike me that way at the time. So I don't. I'd have to go watch it again. I only saw it the one time. Also, Matt, did you find that it was more engaging or less engaging the second time?
It was a little less engaging the second time because I knew a little more what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it both times. We saw it in IMAX one of the times, and I didn't think it was worth all the IMAX hype it got, even though it was cool.
Well, that was another thing I wanted to talk about. Nolan was very, very specific, and this goes back to what you were talking about, Zach, about the control thing. Mm-hmm. But this movie had to be in the theater for a certain amount of time, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that was part of his
Yes.
I don't
Part of his
remember the
contract.
details.
Yeah. And actually, he had a very long, lucrative relationship with Warner Brothers up until his
Because
last
of
movie,
Batman.
Tenet.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it started with maybe Insomnia in like early 2000s, kept on going through, Inception, Interstellar, all that stuff. And then it wasn't. And then when Warner Brothers made the decision with COVID and everything to do Tenet both in the theater and streaming, he got really upset with that, and so he decided that he was going to cut ties, and so he put this movie Oppenheimer up for bid, and Universal Pictures was the one that got it. Probably paid a pretty penny. I don't know what the actual amount was. I'm not sure if it's been divulged, but I bet you it was huge. And but yeah, he's got like this contract that says this has to be like this has to be this, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, it's very much about the control and the way people see it. And I get that you have a vision, you want to communicate that to your viewers in such a way. But at the same time, I also think that, you have to let them kind of decide how they're going to ingest it. I mean, there are going to be people that are going to watch this thing on a cell phone screen, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. But if that's the way they want to do it, then let them do it.
They'll be sitting in the subway, on their way to work, watching Oppenheimer, the first half on the way and the second half on the way back. Yeah. It's very frustrating. And he was very vocal too about don't stream the movie, don't buy it digitally, buy the Blu-rays and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really frustrating because I don't want to have to. That's not where the media is going. First of all, it's just not. The future of media is buying it from streaming services and having it in the cloud. And that's how I prefer to enjoy this. Dan, you and Matt both went to the theater, I assume, right?
Yeah. I did.
And then Zach, I'm guessing you streamed it?
Yes.
Did you purchase it or?
No, I did not. I downloaded the 4K.
Okay.
With HDR.
We purchased the 4K through YouTube or whatever. Spent the $20, so saved money there from going to the theater. And we watched it on our couch in our living room without a bunch of annoying people in the theater on a perfectly good screen and halfway decent sound system. And I don't think the production was lost for that. Would it have been better on a giant screen with amazing speakers all around? Probably. But would I have enjoyed it more? I don't think I would have. And like you said, it's frustrating that he's trying to control that aspect. I get to choose how I enjoy the art. You get to choose how you make the art, but I should get to choose how I enjoy it. So that's kind of where what I feel about that one.
Well, I know where you're coming from, Dave, because that's how you like to that's how a lot of people feel, and that's great for you. But you can eventually watch it. You eventually watched it on streaming, the way you wanted to,
right?
It's not like he's saying no one's ever allowed to see it on streaming or on a cell phone or on a tablet or whatever.
No, I know, and I understand that. My problem is that he's going out of his way to tell people not to stream it.
Yeah, and I think that comes from the how actors and directors and movie studios are trying to grapple with the changes, because whether there are consequences to the change to streaming for the people making the art. So DVDs used to be a way for movies like art movies or action blockbuster movies to be made, because they could make it up on the back end. Mm-hmm. So he's encouraging people to do it that way, because that allows for a wider variety of movies to come into existence to be profitable, which is what the studios decide for the most part how they're going to make the movies. So from his perspective, this makes a lot of sense. I know he's not going to be hurting for money, because every movie he's made except for Tenet has been, since Insomnia, probably, certainly by Batman Begins, has been incredibly successful. I think he's arguing, and I've heard a few actors make this comment too, which was, well, I don't get to work on the movies I'd like to work on because they're just not getting made anymore. There was a period where DVD sales could justify movies that I was more interested in. But if it's not seen as profitable and that goes away, then what you end up with is the streamlining of movies into things that are, more of the superhero movie models that we've been seeing lately. And so for some people, that's great. They're all on board. They're like, that's the movies I want. Maybe a majority of people, but I'm not going to begrudge him using the power he has to try to ask people. I mean, he can't make anybody do anything.
Right.
If he has the power to have in his contract, it's got to be in the theater for say 90 days before it pops out. Well, let him. He's one of the few that can actually do that. And if he wants to argue, hey, I would love it if you guys watch this on DVD instead of streaming it. Well, you don't have to listen to him. In fact, you're definitely not going to listen to him. So I don't think it really affects anything other than offering an idea up, which, if you're a big Christopher Nolan fan, you might say, yeah, okay, I'll do what you'd like me to do. But I don't think he's twisting anybody's arm.
Dan, the thing is, Christopher Nolan has that power, but all of these small people who are getting affected by this, they don't. So the industry needs to move into a way that facilitates them making money through streaming.
But
like Christopher Nolan can do whatever he wants,
yes,
as displayed with this movie.
But there's no guarantee that will happen, and that just the same kinds of movies will get made. Look what happened to
the music industry, though. A lot of people said, no, we're not going to put our stuff on streaming, and then they went away and were never heard from again. And a lot of record companies folded because they refused to change.
Or they eventually did actually relinquish the rights to streaming services.
Yeah, pretty much everybody has. Yeah. But also, a lot of those people talk about how little money they make.
And that's what I'm saying.
And the old system wasn't great either.
The industry needs to move to a model that facilitates the way that the consumer wants to pay money.
Yeah, and so maybe this is just stubbornness, wanting the old system, which isn't perfect either, of course. But I think the people on the inside, the actors and the directors, are also seeing what their options are when they try to make films. So Nolan doesn't have this problem. Maybe he's speaking up for other directors who are, Martin Scorsese has to beg for money to make movies, which is crazy to me because he has such a reputation. And he's not the only one where they're casting about from place to place trying to find someone who's going to make it. So how much money is Killers of the Flower Moon going to make? Probably not that much. And so you might say that movie shouldn't exist. And maybe you're right if we're operating in a purely capitalistic approach. But at the same time, I will be sad if people can't make movies like that because streamers are past the prestige I need to show off phase by like Apple TV Plus saying, oh, we want Scorsese on our platform. And they've shifted into, no, why don't we do another Marvel TV series like What If or, Secret Invasion.
I'm also not worried about Scorsese. I'm worried about the movies like Women Talking and things like that with, less than $1 million budget. Great movies. That was one of the best movies of the year last year, without a doubt. And those are the ones that are going to struggle if the industry doesn't.
Agreed, but I don't know that you seem to be implying that those people will all be saved if we just all embrace streaming and that will solve the problem. I don't know that everyone agrees that that's the solution. And I'm not on the inside of the industry, but neither are you. So I don't think either of us know exactly what's going to happen. So there will be casualties when the changeover happens, and maybe it's inevitable, or maybe there'll be a niche market where you've got, certain types of movies are more theater and DVD, or DVD obviously not, but sort of a physical media type thing. And then there's a lot of other streaming stuff. I don't know how it's going to shake out. But I'm not going to get mad at the guy for trying to defend, what he sees as a possible loss of opportunity for the art that he likes making.
Well, he's also a visual purist, and so that's a big part of the reason why he does the IMAX, why he wants people to go see the movie in the theater, because he wants you to see the best quality possible representation of what he's making.
I have a comment on that.
Oh, okay.
So Gretchen saw it opening day, IMAX, And the IMAX film was like 6 miles long or something ridiculous like that. And the film broke, and she never saw the ending. Like, if you're a visual purist, that's great, but the technology has to be able to deliver your vision then too.
Right.
Yeah.
They had they were telling us at the theater they're bringing in specialists because there were only so many IMAX films made, and Grand Rapids was lucky enough to get one of them. And they had to bring in specialists who could specially handle the film because it was so big and unwieldy.
Oh, yeah.
So, she never saw the ending of the film the first time because the film broke, and then part of the film was lost because it broke.
Yeah.
So
if you want people to watch your vision, you have to make it available for them to be able to watch.
Yeah, but I mean that's a very uncommon exception. I mean, I don't think that we can say, film broke once, therefore film should be burned.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that this IMAX specially made film, it doesn't deliver his vision because it was so hard to run it through. I mean, this was opening day that it broke.
In that one case, I think most of them came out just fine. Again,
But the other thing is how many theaters are able to facilitate that, Dan?
Sure. Wouldn't it be great if every town had an IMAX theater in a way? But
it's an elitist thing.
Well, maybe, but for me, it's cheaper to go to an IMAX showing than it is to buy it on the way you did. For you with the family, it's not. But for me, I can get out of the IMAX for less than $20, no problem.
As long as it doesn't break.
I'll say this.
And I can watch it as many times as I want.
Well, I think I only want to watch it the one time, so I'm good. And if I wanted to watch it more, I'd buy the DVD or the Blu-ray, Right. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying it's not completely black and white. Like, I think there's space for both things. So if he wants to argue to defend that, I'm not going to get mad at him.
Things can't be in the theater, Dan. It's very frustrating when the producer says that gives you the impression that he's looking down on you if you don't watch it in the theater.
Well, what do you care what he has to say about it? You know how you feel about it already.
I care about Christopher Nolan's opinion of me. Anyway, let's move on from this.
Well, can I finish?
Go ahead.
My point. So the whole reason why he was pushing, I did. There was the whole reason why he was pushing the 4K or Blu-ray or whatever is because the bitrate on the discs is much higher than what you will ever get from streaming. So from a technical point of view, it's going to look way better watching it that way than it's going to look on the streaming, and that's partly the differences in the technologies, but it's also because since COVID, they've been reducing the amount, or they reduced and held at the amount of the bit rate of what these streaming movies can actually be shown, pushed over the network, partly because of COVID, but partly because it saves them money. So if they would up the bit rate and make it look better, then you would actually get a closer representation to what he's trying to achieve. And so that's why he wants everybody to go and watch it on the disc, because he knows that the disc is always going to look better than the streaming. That was the point I was going to make.
When they make a Blu-ray player that I can plug into my phone while I'm sitting in the subway, I will consider that.
Spend a lot of time in the subway, Dave?
All the time.
I was just about to ask that.
Grand Rapids is bringing a subway. I'm all in for it.
That's right.
Well, I'll just say this. I think we can all agree that Christopher Nolan's mildly insufferable, regardless of whether we agree with him on that case or not. But
thank you for making Batman, though. Anyway, Oscar nominations. What do we think this is going to get? What's his name? Cillian? Is he going to get nominated for Best Actor?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
I think it's gonna be one of the big ones. I think it's gonna get nominated for probably about 10 to 15 different awards.
Do we think
Cillian? Yes. I think Robert Downey for supporting. I think Emily Blunt for supporting. Yep.
I think Emily Blunt more than Robert Downey. I mean, maybe, but that didn't.
You think she'll get supporting, not lead?
Well, I think the screen time would justify supporting, but they may put her in for lead, and then it becomes a little trickier, I think. But I guess we'll see. I think that's a little bit of strategy involved.
I don't really know what the distinction is made. I didn't really feel like. I mean, I guess she was the female lead in this, but I didn't really feel like she was enough of a focal point for that to be.
lead actress.
Not really
Yeah.
a female lead kind of movie, honestly.
No, there wasn't much room for female characters. In fact, they felt a little crammed in.
That being said, that the scene where she testifies towards the end, absolutely, like she should win just based on that. I just loved how like forceful and to the point, and how there was this like subtle emotion subtle and not so subtle emotion going on while she was giving her testimony.
Yep.
I thought that was a really powerful scene.
She was one of the few characters that I felt had a true arc and true development as the story went on, despite the lack of screen time.
I don't think they gave her a ton of stuff to do other than being long suffering. But I will say she absolutely maximized everything they let her do. There's no doubt about that. I do think where it's really going to get is the technical things, like the cinematography, the editing, the costume, the set construction, all that stuff. Yeah. And I do think Best Picture is very likely, especially with the 10 nominations.
Do you think he'll get nominated for director or screenplay?
Most likely both. Yep.
I don't know.
I don't think he should for screenplay, but
I don't think so for screenplay either. Maybe director. With the like you said, with 10 nominations, Dan, Best Picture, it should be nominated, but I don't think the writing was good enough for me. I didn't care enough about the characters. Yeah,
it wasn't I agree. It was hard to really care about the characters, and it's funny you mentioned the Einstein thing. It's funny about that is that's one of the very few absolutely invented things. It's a very faithful thing. That.
Yep.
But that's entirely made up. but it was effective.
It was intriguing.
Yeah. Right. It was a question that sort of like lingered through the movie.
Yeah, I cared what he and Einstein talked about, That was something that they got my interest about. I didn't care about his involvement with the Communist Party, or lack thereof, or where that fit and everything. But I did care what he said, what he and Einstein talked about.
Well, I do think we asked why the movie exists or who cares. Basically, like it's all telling us stuff we already know. I think one of the things that was interesting to learn about was the sort of interplay and the sort of trying to like agree with the government officials and the scientists on what's acceptable for sharing, what's acceptable for your past party affiliations, whether you can be trusted. I thought that was interesting and something I never really thought about. What we did not get a whole lot of is the Japanese viewpoint, but he's not Japanese. And, maybe that's a story that should be told by, a Japanese director anyway, because we'd only be guessing. We were less likely to have lived or known people who lived the experience. So there was some interest, but I'm not that excited to watch it a second time. I'll say that much.
Yeah. If you want more content like this, you can find everything we've done at 64tacos.com. And if you really liked it, you can help us financially by going to buymeacoffee.com/64tacos, and you can buy us a taco. Thanks for listening.
I caught it on audio.